Joining us now on Planet America's Fireside Chat is Professor Alan Schroeder, who literally wrote the book on American presidential debates, Risky Business on the Campaign Trail. Alan Schroeder, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wonder, how do you expect the two candidates are preparing right now, a little less than a week out from this potentially very important debate? We've seen reports as to the approach they've taken and past experience with how these two tend to prepare. What do you think's going on?
Well, it's a real study in contrasts. On the one hand, you have Trump, who doesn't really prepare, who is, so comfortable with himself on television that he doesn't do anything particularly different to get ready for a debate. And then you have Harris, who has this whole team of people who are specialists in debate preparation, who will be working with her, doing full-scale mock rehearsals. They'll have a stand-in for Donald Trump, who will browbeat her and insult her and try to get her all riled up. They'll videotape those rehearsals, and then they'll do critique sessions with the candidate afterwards. So it's a real sort of a highly tuned operation on the Democratic side. And Trump, being Trump and such an unorthodox candidate, he just sort of does his own thing on that side of the aisle.
Alan, normally debates come and go and then we move on, but do you feel like this debate is more important and more consequential than your standard presidential debate?
I think they all have the potential to be consequential. I think a couple of things, however, mark this year differently from previous cycles. First of all, there's still the memory in our minds of the Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate. So, that was a real game changer in a way that we've never seen in the history of these things. But also, I think with Harris as this sudden, unexpected candidate, there's a lot of interest in her, and there's a lot of I think, people wanting to really check her out. Although she's been vice president for 4 years, that's a job that doesn't really put you at the forefront of the media. So I think in many ways she remains an unknown commodity, and I think that'll generate interest in the debate.
Based on what we do know, Alan, how do you rate Trump and Harris as debaters, if indeed you can kind of even call these things that we call debates actually debates these days?
Yeah, fair enough point. I think with Trump, he has the benefit of having done 6 general election debates, 3 with Hillary, 3 with Biden, and there's really no substitute for experience at this level. I mean, this is really big time. I would not be surprised if 75 million people tune in for this debate. And, that's a pretty intimidating prospect. And of course, Trump also has the advantage of being himself to a degree that he can get away with things that other candidates probably couldn't. With Harris, she only has 1 general election debate to her credit. That's the one with Pence back in 2020, and a few California debates when she was running for Attorney General and Senate there, as well as whatever debates she took part in the primary season in 2020. But she's much less experienced, and certainly at this level. And so I think, in some ways she has the greater challenge. She has to introduce herself to the public. She has to get people to view her as presidential. And she hasn't really done this that much. So those are some pretty intimidating things to deal with.
Alan, we've alluded to the fact that debates aren't quite what they used to be. I was just watching the 2012 debate the other day, and it's very different to the debates we see now. Do modern debates make you shake your head in disappointment, or are you rolling with them?
Well, this year has been kind of a strange one in that regard, because up to this point, for the past 20 years or so, it's been the Commission on Presidential Debates that has sponsored and produced these events. And this year, back in June, and now the debate here in September, those are done by the commercial television networks. They even include advertising, which up until this point, we've never seen in an American presidential debate. So I do worry a little bit that they're getting dumbed down and they're getting turned into products that, generate revenue for commercial television networks, as opposed to their original intention, which was always to be a civic event, a civic discussion. I think, it always comes down to the same thing, however, which is the capability or lack thereof of the candidates under these circumstances.
Alan, one of the effects of the Presidential Commission on Debates being sidelined this year is that the ground rules and indeed the rules for the debates themselves have been changed and argued over. Heading into that first debate, some people are of the opinion that the rules would favour Joe Biden because there'd be no peanut gallery, no live audience to be cheering and applauding at Trump being transgressive, and having a mute button so that Trump couldn't be heard will also sort of stop him interrupting. So all good for Joe Biden. We obviously saw that's not how it worked out. What do you make of the way those rules will play into next week's debate? Will they advantage or disadvantage either?
Well, I think the lack of a studio audience is a good thing for Kamala Harris. I think that for Trump to have a live audience there encourages him to play to the crowd. So that won't be there. The thing with the microphones is an interesting argument because Harris actually has been arguing, her team has been arguing to have open mics throughout the debate. They want the interruptions from Trump. They want the bluster. They want the rudeness. And they're not going to get that. I think without open mics, it does tend to maybe slow things down a little bit. I noticed in the June debate with Biden and Trump, there were some kind of awkward timing moments just as they tried to sort out the audio and which mic was open and which mic was off. And so, you know, it's a production point that is probably not going to, you know, be dispositive in the way that the debate goes. But these little minor things around the edges can sometimes make a difference.
Now that the rules appear to be up for grabs, Alan, are there any other changes that you'd like to see made to debates?
Well, I've always had, you know, this kind of fantasy of a case study debate where, you know, like they do in business schools and grad schools and different disciplines where you take a scenario and you argue it out. And, you know, I think that would be so much better than just these serial questions about what are you going to do and why didn't you do this and you know, your record on such and such. I don't think that will ever happen. You know, I think candidates themselves like the safety of the predictable format. They like dealing with journalists because journalists often ask questions that they can anticipate. And so I don't know that we're going to ever get too creative with debates, but I do think there's a lot of room for experimentation and improvement.
Alan, one of the criticism that's been made of TV debates really since 1960 is that TV debates, not only are they not debates, but they're all about TV. The medium is the message and it amplifies whether it's Richard Nixon's 5 o'clock shadow or George Bush looking at his watch or Al Gore sighing and huffing and puffing. Little things like that get magnified beyond all kind of, you know, perspective. What do you think of that and the distorting effect of television itself on these debates?
Well, there is no question that debates are television shows more than anything else. And they're very different from all other forms of political communication. But I think within that, there are so many good things about debates that even that tendency of television to, you know, reduce the exercise to entertainment, we can overlook that because we have to remember that this is the only chance we get to see the candidates side by side. It's the only chance we really get to pull them away from their scripts and see them in a setting that they can't really prepare totally for, and certainly without any kind of a script or an opportunity to fall back on notes or ask an aide off camera or what have you. So I think the value of that is so great that the drawbacks, the fact that yes, there's a lot of superficial stuff involved and the visuals tend to overwhelm everything else. I think we just have to take that as part of the package.
So given that answer, can I then assume that there's a lot of cynicism out there from the punditocracy these days saying the media environment's changed, the candidates have changed, debates are irrelevant these days. Can I take it from your previous answer then, you still think debates are critically important?
I do, and I think that's reflected in the viewership. You know, even people who don't give a damn about politics will watch the debates. After the Super Bowl, the debates this year will be the second highest rated programs in the U.S. Television industry. And that tells you that there's an appetite for this. And I think that makes them important. And I think the fact that the candidates themselves don't control it, that it's an awkward situation for them. If they had their druthers, they wouldn't even be doing it. So I think that makes it good for the voters. This is our chance to do the job interview with them. And yes, job interviews are always awkward, but they're also revealing. So I think, the trade-off is still in favor of having debates and the value of debates.
I suppose, Alan, one of the unique things about these television debates is it is one of the very, very few occasions where the two rivals for the presidency are on the same stage at the same time. They may be using the same talking points they've been using for years, but they're eye to eye. What is your advice in terms of how different candidates over the years have dealt with that kind of, on an almost human level, an awkward situation? Here's this person that wants to stop you being the most powerful person on the planet. What advice do you think you can take from all those debates, those that have managed that situation well and those who have not?
Well, I think one thing is just to be alert to what is going on. And I know that maybe sounds like a stupid thing to say, but let me give you a line from Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, who was a great debater, used to say that debating was like jazz, that there was a melody line that you had to follow, but you also have to be kind of in the moment and you have to be able to improvise and riff on whatever is going on. And so that would be my advice to any debater is don't go into this thing with this attitude of rigidity, because really it's a very fluid thing and you have to be kind of so in the zone, so in the moment. It's almost like an athlete, at the Olympics or something. Your full concentration is required there. So I would say that, and I would also say have some fun with it, and it's easier for me to say. I'm not the one who has to get in front of 75 million people, but we want to see these people as human beings. We want to see that they understand us. We want to see that we can relate to them. And so I think to the extent that people can relax, not be scared of it, don't look at it as an obstacle, but rather as an opportunity. That would be my advice for whatever it's worth.
If I could go slightly broader, as a press veteran, Alan, how do you feel about the view that the Harris campaign appears to have developed, that it's not worth the risk to be conducting interviews and holding press conferences, that they'll actually do better if they avoid the media entirely and just fully control what they release to the media? How do you feel about that?
Well, that's been a goal of campaigns for a long time now. The thing, however, that's different at this moment in history is that you have so many other opportunities beyond the traditional media, beyond the traditional television interview. And I think the Harris campaign has been particularly aggressive and successful in using social media and TikToks and, just sort of alternate ways of reaching people, and particularly the young people that they need to inspire to get out and vote for them. So I will see. I mean, in retrospect, if she loses, then we'll all say, oh, she should have done more interviews. But I do think that there's something in this strategy that they're attempting right now, and that bypassing the media may not end up being such a bad idea.
Alan, my final question is to ask you to put the debate we saw at the end of June into the broadest historical context of American debates, because we do every 4 years, we take away a moment or a debate or a turn of phrase or a look or whatever. Where do you think the Biden-Trump debate falls in the pantheon of American presidential debates when your successors are writing histories of debates in 30 and 40 years? What will they say about it, do you think?
Well, I think it was probably the most consequential debate that we've ever had, beginning with the 1960 Kennedy-Nixon ones, because it's the only one that literally forced a candidate out. And nobody really much saw that coming. It was sad to watch. It was sad to see an elder statesman in kind of a position of decrepitude like Biden was. But it also did what debates are supposed to do. Back in 1960, after the Kennedy-Nixon debates, the columnist Walter Lippmann wrote that debates were a truth machine, that they show us things that the candidates don't want us to know. And I think, that is exactly what happened with that Biden-Trump debate, is things that had been kept under the table are suddenly out there for all of us to see. And there's great value in that in elections where the candidates try to control and spin every single thing.
And Alan Schroeder, there's great value in your perspective. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.